The worst thing a kid can hear isn't no. It's, why can't you be more like your cousin Sarah? That one sentence became the soundtrack to my entire life, like a needle skipping on a broken record. It just about ruined me. I remember the day it all changed. The day I finally realized Sarah's perfect life wasn't just a lie, it was a trap. I was 12 when my parents first put a name to my shortcomings, Sarah. She was the golden girl. Straight A's, ballet classes, volunteered at the animal shelter. She was everything I wasn't. Clumsy, obsessed with old vinyl records, constantly getting grounded for skipping my chores. Every family dinner felt like an unsolicited review of my performance compared to hers. Sarah got into advanced placement algebra, my mom would sigh, looking at my C-. She already knows how to manage a budget, my dad would chime in, looking at the $5 I spent on a comic book. It wasn't just advice. It was constant, crushing pressure. I started to hate her. Not because she was actually mean, but because she was the standard I could never meet. She was the reason I felt like a disappointment every single day. I swore that one day I'd get away from their judgment and build a life so good they'd finally have nothing to compare me to. But the real twist? When I finally did, it was Sarah who showed up at my doorstep, completely broken, asking for help. And the secret she told me changed everything I thought I knew about her perfect existence. I graduated high school and immediately left for college 3 states away. No goodbye party, just a cold silence and my parents wishing me luck and saying Sarah would be so successful in her gap year. I worked 3 jobs through college, slept on a couch that smelled like stale coffee. I was driven by pure, icy spite and the desperate need to prove them all wrong. The silence was the best part. No constant comparisons, no Sarah. I finally found me. I got into tech, something my parents called a risky hobby. I launched an app that was totally niche, a digital library for vintage vinyl. It hit. It really hit. 2 years later, I sold a majority stake. I bought a condo in the city, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that screamed, I made it. I was successful. I was finally me. And I was happy, truly happy. One cold, wet Tuesday night, I heard a tentative knock on my door. My heartbeat quickened. I never had guests. When I opened it, the cold wind gusted in, and standing there, soaked and shivering, was Sarah. Not the Sarah from the Christmas cards. This Sarah looked like a ghost. Her clothes were nice, expensive, but worn out. Her eyes were bloodshot. The silence hung heavy between us, broken only by the distant siren and the drip of rain from the awning. "Can I come in, Alex?" she whispered, her voice cracking. The shock was a physical blow. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" She sank onto my sofa, pulling her designer coat tighter even though the heat was blasting. I handed her a mug of tea, my mind racing. Where was her perfect husband, the one who worked on Wall Street? Where was her picture-perfect townhome? She took a shaky sip and finally looked up. "It was all for them, Alex," she confessed, her voice barely above a breath. Every single thing, the A's, the ballet, the perfect job, it was just to keep them happy. She told me her parents, my aunt and uncle, had a system, a cold, calculated one. They had essentially groomed her for a specific kind of success, the success my parents valued. She never loved ballet. She wanted to study art. She never wanted to marry the Wall Street guy. She actually fell for a chef, a messy, passionate guy. But her parents had threatened to cut her off completely. "I had to perform, Alex," she choked out. They financed everything, but the cost was my life. She was trapped in a loveless marriage, working a miserable corporate job she hated, because it was stable. And now, she was running away. The husband found out she was unhappy and was threatening to use their prenup to leave her with nothing. "I have no savings," she whispered. "No true skills. I don't know who I am without them telling me." Her silence was louder than any scream. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, at my condo, at the confidence I wore like a jacket. "You took the risk," she said, tears finally falling. "You were the failure, and they hated it. But you built this. You're free. I want to be like you." The irony hit me like a physical punch. The person my parents held up as the gold standard was sitting in my living room, completely broken, wishing she had my guts. The guts to be the disappointment. The guts to choose my own path, even if it meant years of cold family holidays. The cold truth was that Sarah had lived her life for someone else's approval. I had lived mine in spite of their disapproval. And spite, ugly as it is, had made me free. I took her hand. It was a strange feeling. No jealousy, just a deep, sad empathy. I told her, "You don't want to be like me, Sarah. You want to be you. And we'll figure out how to get you there." That night, the bitter sting of all those comparisons finally faded. I realized my parents' judgment was never about my worth. It was about their fear of anything unconventional. They were afraid of the messy, unpredictable path. They thought Sarah's path was safety. It was just a more gilded cage. It's easy to chase someone else's version of success, especially when the people you love are pushing you towards it. But if it doesn't feed your soul, that perfect life will always leave you starving. Sometimes being the disappointment is the only way to save yourself. It's the only path to real freedom. Don't let anyone else write your story. You're the only one who has to live it. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe.